Hey, mamas. Welcome to the Balanced Working Mama podcast. I know it's been a while. I know. I know. I know it's been a while, but you have no idea how excited I am to be back. And it's only been 3 months, but it really feels like it's been so much longer than that. But I'm excited because I get to become reconnected with you all, those of you who have listened to the Balanced Working Mama podcast since day one, since the very first episode in July of 2020, who have maybe listened to all 90 episodes that we have. But I'm also excited to be back because I know there are a lot of new people here listening, and there probably are a lot of new people who are getting to know me, getting to know Balanced Working Mama, and I'm so excited to say hello to you today. So, today, let's think of this as a reintroduction to me, Dr. Amber, a reintroduction to the Balanced Working Mama podcast, but also a new introduction to all of this, y'all. So if you're watching on YouTube or if you so happen to be watching a clip of this is new, right? Because first of all, I'm new to YouTube, but also I don't know, like this whole 2023 podcasting, what I've realized is that I need to add this video component because it helps me to connect with you even more, but also it just makes this cooler. So you see, I'm here in my studio, and just know that as this podcast evolves, especially this part of the podcast, you're going to see things shift and move. You know, right now I have what I have, but I'm excited to add new things to the studio and to make this my home and my space. So, one new thing about our podcast this season is that if you want to watch this, you can go to YouTube and watch it, y'all, which is crazy. It's crazy to me because this is not what I'm used to with when it comes to podcasting. So this is completely new. But anywho, wow, we're back. Balanced Working Mama. So I really want to spend some time catching up with you really quickly. So first, let me say for anyone who is new, is not as familiar to me, my name is Dr. Amber. I am a clinical psychologist and I am the founder of Balanced Working Mama. And Balanced Working Mama is a movement that really supports millennial moms in finding balance in motherhood. Because I am crazy enough to believe that balance in motherhood truly does exist. And what I know about balance is that it's an experience that is possible. However, society and people who have maybe been jaded by motherhood or certain seasons of life often tell women and mothers that balance in motherhood is not possible. Balance in motherhood is not something that you should strive for or seek to attain. And I am here to tell you that I do believe that balance in motherhood is possible. And this is why I do this. This is why this work is so powerful to me, so passionate for me. This is what Balanced Working Mama is all about. It's here to inspire, encourage, and motivate you to know that that balance that you have been told is not possible, that balance that you are craving, that balance that you want so bad for yourself is possible. I work with women who want that, who desperately need that. You know, for many of the women, their livelihood desperately depends on their ability to finally get these things right, these pieces put in place where, I need to have the balance so that my health condition doesn't get worse. I need to have this balance so that I do remain in my marriage. I need to have this balance so that my children will grow up happy and not traumatized. I need to have this balance because I so desperately want this career or this business that I have this vision for. I need this balance because my mental health can no longer take living without it. And so that to me is why balance in motherhood is so important. That to me is why Balanced Working Mama is so important. And this movement matters so much to me. And we are in year 3, y'all. And so 3 is powerful. The Balanced Working Mama podcast. So if you are new to this podcast, I highly encourage you go back. And granted, there's a lot of episodes. There's about 90 episodes, but I do think it's very important for you to listen to season 1. As I'm saying this, I realize that I probably sound a lot different in season one because that was 3 years ago and that was my very first experience of this podcast. But that first season is so foundational because it lays out the entire framework for how to achieve balance in motherhood. So that is something that we're going to go over again in this new season of the podcast. I plan to talk through that balance framework with you so you know exactly what you need to do to have balance in motherhood. But I highly encourage you go back to that season one because all of it is right there. But we will definitely go through it again. I promise. Um, Let me catch you up a little bit on what has happened in the last few months. So, those of you who are OG listeners to the podcast, you know, you probably haven't heard from me on this podcast since September. And in September, where was I and what was I doing? In September, I was in the throes of our Balanced Working Mama membership community. Of course, many of you know in 2022, we opened up a membership community for Balanced Working Mama, and that was such an amazing experience. I was able to connect with close to 100 moms that came through that community for varying lengths of time. They were able to connect with one another, connect to the mission and the drive of Balanced Working Mama, the aspects of the balance framework that they really needed. They were able to connect with one another. I got to know so many of them. And one thing that I learned is that women and mothers, we are so powerful when we are together, when we are supporting one another, when we're cheering each other on, when we're holding each other accountable. The Balanced Working Mama community was such an amazing project. And one thing that I learned in the last 3 months is that there's something about Balanced Working Mama that is so magical that it has the potential to be bigger than our community that we built in 2022. And so, something that did happen in the last 3 months is that I did decide to permanently close our membership community. And for a few reasons. One, I knew that I wanted to be doing more of this. You all noticed that I took a break from the podcast in September because it was really hard to maintain our membership community and really truly show up for the podcast. And I had to make a hard decision. I wanted to come back to the podcast. I wanted to really get on YouTube and bring this message to a different audience. I want to continue to move on in my journey of potentially publishing a book about balance and motherhood. And it was really hard to do while managing our membership community. And so the last 3 months have taught me that this is the direction that I want to move in. And while I was so grateful and honored to be able to support our moms in our community, I knew that our community had to end so that we could move in a different direction. So I'm super excited for this new chapter of Balanced Working Mama, one that is in parts trying to figure it out, but also in parts so confident in knowing that there is a message and a movement to share, and it's going to be done, you all. And I'm so glad that this podcast is another part of the equation for us. In addition to YouTube, of course, Instagram is always there, but this podcast right here is just, it's my baby, and I'm so glad to be back. Another really cool thing that I think is going to be interesting on the podcast this year is this. If you have been following me on Instagram, if you are on my email list, you have been hearing me talk about something called the default parent syndrome. And let me explain. In the last three years of Balanced Working Mama, of supporting millennial moms, I realized that many of you have been able to find balance in motherhood by following our balance framework. And again, I'm going to talk about the framework in a few days. So hold tight, just in case you don't know exactly what I'm talking about. But something that I realized is that there was a big group of women who were able to really access balance by shifting their mindset, shifting some routines, and changing some habits and getting rid of old things and bringing in new things. They were able to do that and feel a lot better. And then there was this other group of women who continued to struggle with this concept and this idea of balance and motherhood and really needed more support. So, in conversation with these women, something that kept coming up was that I feel like I can't have balance because I'm doing too much at home, particularly for our moms who are partnered or are married. And I dug deeper and realized there's something happening called the default parent syndrome. I was able to write an article about this on Psychology today, and I'll try to remember to share that with you all. But the default parent syndrome is something that really interferes with our ability to have balance in motherhood. And it's because we're doing too much because we are a default parent. And again, I'll be talking more about what it means to be a default parent and how that interferes with balance. But today, I want you to know that you're going to hear me talking about this more, this idea of being a default parent and how it interferes with our ability to have balance in motherhood, because it's hard to have balance when there is a misbalance at home when it comes to the share of responsibilities, the share of caregiving and caretaking for children. I want to help more women and more families reshift this balance so that mama can have balance, if that makes sense. And so we will be talking a lot about what it means to undo default parenting this season in the podcast so that you can have more balance. So if you have struggled with this concept of balance, if you have struggled with this idea or even imagining that balance in motherhood is possible for you, it's possible that being a default parent has gotten in the way. And so if this resonates for you, hold on, because we will definitely talk about default parenting a lot this season in the podcast. So you all, this is it. This is it. I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about so much default parenting. We're going to be talking about balance in motherhood and really, really getting into the nitty gritty of what it means to have balance and what that looks like and what that feels like. How do you know when it's there? We're going to be talking about strategies for how to really undo default parenting so that you can move into a space of having more balance in motherhood. I want to talk about mental health on this podcast a lot more this year. I really want to talk about the experiences of women who have been impacted by Balanced Working Mama. And I have a very amazing interview that I'm going to bring to you all in the next few weeks by one of our mamas who was a member of our community, but who has also been really impacted by Balanced Working Mama. I can't wait for you all to meet her. But all in all, y'all, it is so good to be back. I'm feeling so good to be back. I will get the hang of this whole video thing, but so if you're watching on YouTube and you enjoyed this, please make sure you are subscribed and you share this video with someone else. If you are listening on the podcast, thank you so much for sticking with me, coming back, waiting out the break that we had. I am so glad to be back, and I'm so glad that you are here. As always, if this podcast has touched you, or if you are simply excited about the newness that will come in this podcast, please share it with another mama that you know and love. And I will talk to you all soon.